Welcome to Focus once again. I'm CJ Layton. We continue our end-of-season amateur bowling focus with a talk with Randy Peterson. He is a PBA Hall of Famer, multi-time titleist. He is currently on the PBA 50 Tour and an ESPN analyst. Speaking of television, in our second segment, we start by discussing his beginnings in television with ESPN. I always thought you were a natural for TV. I remember some of the early and middle 1990s promos for ABC Sports that they did for bowling, some of the more upbeat ones. You were in those. It seemed to me your personality was a natural for TV. When were you approached to start your TV gig for ESPN?
When the new PBA took over, the new guys that were running the new tour, the new owners, they actually had an audition for the color analyst job, and myself, Brian Voss, and Brian Goebel auditioned for the job, and I got it.
Nice.
That was back in 2000.
You've been there ever since. You've been working with some different people, and, overall, I think the whole presentation has been fantastic. I love the TV shows. I'd like to see more of them, but then again, the PBA, like everybody else these days, is running on a pretty tight budget. I like the way you're working with Jack Gabowski right now. When he was doing his Mike J. Laneside gig on Extra Frame, there were some things that I thought, could have been upped in his presentation, but since he's been working with you on ESPN, I really think Mike J. has upped his game.
Yeah, well, he's come a long way, for a guy that's never done television or live television, for that matter. Mm-hmm. He works really hard. He's very well prepared. But chemistry is everything, and that's obviously something that we continue to work on. I know that this is kind of the dream job for him ever since he started with the PBA, and he works hard at trying to be good at his craft, and he's very well prepared. He knows the players. He knows a little bit about bowling, and so I think he's getting better and better with each show.
We're talking with PBA Hall of Famer Randy Peterson, and before we get into some USB BC league stuff and so forth, it's coming to the end of fall and winter leagues right now. The average Joes, the guys like me, some of us bowl maybe 2 leagues a week, others 3 leagues a week, and we get our practice time in between. I'm 53, 54 years old, around that age range. What would you suggest? Now that the fall leagues are over with, what kind of regimen would you suggest for somebody like me to kind of keep my game in tune during the summer?
Well, obviously, you have to practice, and what I like to tell people is try to bowl tournaments. The league seasons are over. Try to find tournaments you can bowl. Try to find tournaments that where they put out maybe a little bit different oil patterns and whatnot, because ultimately that's what's going to make a player better, is bowling on a little tougher oil patterns and trying to figure out how to adjust their games to something that's different. And it's part of the biggest problem in our sport that we have now is that so many centers have such easy oil patterns.
Sure.
There's really no incentive or reason for people to practice to work on their game because the lanes are so easy.
Right.
But tournament bowlers need to practice to work on their game, work on their equipment, know what drilling patterns work best for them on certain stuff, know how to adjust surface and surfaces of their equipment and whatnot to get the ball motion correct, to get the ball to go through the pins the right way. I've learned a lot since I came back and started bowling. I really learned a lot working with Del Ballard Jr. and Chris Schlemmer, and just learning a lot about ball motion and how it applies to me in my game, and how much it means in the grand scheme of things in terms of being able to knock down the most spins possible. And it's been a huge learning curve for me. But I'll tell you, where I am now versus where I was 2 years ago is a huge difference.
And the balls have changed so radically. I mean, we went from what you and I both talked about, and we all went through this, in the early 1990s, just the reactive resin. Then all of a sudden, at least I think in the last 4 or 5 years, I think we've seen another explosion of bowling balls, in particular the cores. Some of these cores are, I don't know, they're bordering on science fiction looking.
Yeah, no, they really are. I mean, the equipment's gotten real high tech, and I think the thing to just kind of remember is, if you know a little bit about RGs and differentials, you can kind of you can kind of use that as a map and know, what kind of works for your game and what doesn't. But again, I'm constantly trying to learn and figure out what layouts and what kind of bowling balls work best for my game, and creating a certain motion that will that'll go through the pins the right ways to maximize carry. And that's the biggie. It's a lot of times it's not that difficult to hit the pocket, but if you're leaving ring 10, stone 8, blower 7, your ball's not going through the pins the right way.
Right.
And then last but not least, the other thing that I've learned is that if you're doing that with every ball that you're throwing, what's the common denominator? The common denominator is the guy throwing it. So then something has to change. Your axis rotation has to change, your tilt. Maybe you need to roll it more. Maybe you need to try to kick around the side of it more. So all these things kind of factor into the equation.
Going back to your relationship with Storm, is there a go-to benchmark ball for you? My benchmark ball from Storm, since it came out, has always been the High Road, for example.
Right now, benchmark ball for me, or a ball that I always like to throw or look forward to throwing, doesn't mean I can always throw it.
Yeah.
Is the IQ Tour.
Oh, beautiful.
I just like the motion. I like what it does. It's predictable. I can read it. Doesn't mean that it's always the right ball to throw. I mean, I went through like 4 different bowling balls in the first 3 games this morning. Nothing went through the pins the right way. I grabbed them on the left. I moved in. I tried to tip it just a little bit, and the next thing you know, I shot 300 over the last 6 games. So, for me, I like to keep an open mind, and just kind of knowing that I need a ball motion that's going to create, X type of reaction, and I start there, and once I get close, then I can kind of maybe juggle my equipment. If nothing changes, then I know that I have to change something physically.
We're talking with Bowling Hall of Famer Randy Peterson. He's also been a very fine ESPN analyst since the early 2000s. I want to finish up with you, Randy, and I appreciate it so much for you getting on here and talking with me. The same thing I said with Lenny Nicholson, my old friend, when I first started talking to him back in August. Some of the players that you have been with over the years have been sometimes beyond belief. Guys like Amleto, guys like Norm Duke, Brian Voss, the old cover boy back in the 80s. I look at Peter David Weber right now, and I pretty much think the same thing that you've said. The guy really is a freak of nature, isn't he?
Yeah, he really is. I think that there's a great argument to be made as to who really is the greatest bowler of all time. And, everybody wants to look at titles first because obviously winning is everything, and I get that. And obviously you have to look at Walter Ray and Earl Anthony.
Sure.
But I think from a physical standpoint, I don't think there's been a player that's ever thrown a bowling ball better, more efficiently than Pete Weber. And I think if you look back about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago when Pete beat Belmonte in the Tournament of Champions.
Oh, that was sick.
Weber's throwing 2 gold IQs.
1 pin over, 1 pin under.
1 pin up, 1 pin down.
Right.
Playing 6-0, competing against a guy who's got the strongest strike ball on the tour, playing the same deep inside line, and Pete smoked him. And Pete's the only guy with a rev rate of about 340 that could do that.
Right.
Pete doesn't have a very high rev rate.
That's right.
But he's got the most incredible axis tilt that the tour has ever seen, and he's got probably the softest hand and the softest release out of any player on tour. And, now with the game being the way it is, I went and bowled at the World Series of Bowling this year, which was a huge mistake because I don't have enough power to strike with those guys.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
You think about E.J. Tackett and Belmonte and Roush and Wes Malott. And Wes is very similar to Pete Weber in that he's a lower rev rate guy with a lot of axis tilt and a lot of axis rotation. And so that's how Wes gets it done. It's the only way a lower rev guy can compete. And there's only 2 guys out there. Pete Weber's the best one at it.
Sure.
And I just think that from a physical standpoint, nobody in the history of our sport has ever thrown it better than him.
Tell you what, my man, we're running out of time right now, but my gosh, this has been a kick. I've really wanted to talk to you for a long time. For those of you listening in, if you don't know what Randy or I are talking about, RG's differentials, weight blocks, things like that, make sure to visit your local pro shop. That's what the guy gets paid for. Randy, all the best of luck to you on the PBA 50 Tour and many returns, okay?
CJ, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Again, my thanks to the Professional Bowlers Association Media Department for setting up this interview with Randy Peterson. It won't be my last. I'll probably talk to him again in August, and we'll see how he's going once again. And also, my thanks to the great one, Randy Peterson himself. Before we get to weather, here's a tip from Randy Peterson on how to improve your game. And thanks to Storm Bowling Products for this tip.
Hi, everybody. Randy Peterson here for Storm Bowling Products. Today we're going to talk about putting rotation on the bowling ball. Why is that important? Well, it's really quite simple. A straight ball is going to go into the pins and it's going to deflect, thus decreasing pin carry. What we want to do is knock as many pins down as possible with every shot. So by putting rotation on the bowling ball, it's going to help the ball drive through the pins and minimize deflection. By minimizing deflection, we're going to knock more. Hi, everybody. Randy Peterson here for Storm How do we Bowling put rotation Products. on the bowling Today ball? We're going to talk First of about all, it's all about being in the right position at the bottom of the swing. Well, and that it's really position quite is simple. the hand a straight ball is going to go into not the on the pins and side. It's going to Remember, when the hand gets to the side early, all you're going to do is spin it. What we want to do is we want to keep the hand underneath the ball with every shot.
clears,
so by putting rotation on the bowling ball, it's not going to help the ball drive through the pins. Is going to create minimize deflection. It's a quarter turn. Minimizing deflection. I want you to envision throwing an underhand spiral with a football. How do we put rotation on the bowling ball? That's really all about being in the right position at the bottom of the swing. Underneath, and that position turn off the side of the ball, and you're going to put not on the side. And remember, turn when the hand gets to the side early, when you do that, all you're going to do is the ball's going to drive through the pins, hand underneath the ball. When the thumb clears, it's going to be a quarter turn. It's not this. That's, again, is going to create spin. It's a quarter turn. I want you to envision throwing an underhand spiral with a football, because in essence, that's really what a bowling release is all about. You get your hand underneath, a little quarter turn off the side of the ball, and you're going to put roll and side turn on that bowling ball. And when you do that, the ball is going to drive through the pins, and you're going to throw a lot more strikes.